When my sister buzzed my old apartment that morning, she had 3 friends and a moving truck. I watched from my new balcony as they unloaded her things. She smiled up at me like she owned the place. She didn't know I had already changed the locks. Mom was calling nonstop. If you saw someone quietly taking credit for years of your work, would you call them out in front of everyone, or just watch and wait for your chance? I'm Olivia, 32, and I work as a financial analyst in Manhattan. I've lived here for 10 years, mostly in cramped apartments with thin walls and noisy neighbors. It took me almost a decade of long hours, skipped vacations, and eating takeout at my desk to save enough for a real place of my own. Last spring, I closed on a top-floor unit in a building on the Upper West Side. It's not enormous, but it's got floor-to-ceiling windows, a tiny terrace, and for the first time, a sense of privacy. Signing those papers felt like the first thing I'd done for myself, not my family. My parents are the type you see at Sunday brunch in the suburbs, still together after 40 years, always telling their friends about their daughters' careers. They love the word support. They say it often, but it usually means they want a say in every decision. Growing up, my mom managed my college applications, my bank account, even my first job interview outfit. My father is quieter, but he follows her lead. Chloe is 4 years younger. She's the one who never hears no. She changed her major 3 times, moved in with 3 different boyfriends, and still calls home for help with bills. My parents never complain. They say she's finding herself. When she didn't get a job after graduation, my mom found her an internship. When she wrecked her car, Dad replaced it. I learned not to ask for much. When I told them about the penthouse, my mom smiled and said, "Let us help with the paperwork, Liv. We know how overwhelming it can be." Chloe texted me the next day asking if she could crash for a bit, while her apartment was fumigated. My father just nodded, proud but distant, like he'd expected all along that I'd land on my feet. Now, when I look back, I see the pattern. I see how quickly my mother took my mail to sort, how Chloe seemed to have her own set of keys before I'd even moved in. But at the time, I thought I was finally in control. I thought, this time, things would be different. Sunday dinners have always felt like a formality. We sit at the old teak table, pretending to care about casseroles and each other's weeks. Mom always sets the table with her wedding china, even though she says she hates the pattern now. Dad brings out a roast or something that smells heavy. That night, I barely had time to sit before she spoke. "Chloe will move into your old apartment next week. You'll give her your keys, right?" She said it while pouring gravy, as if she was only asking if I wanted more. Chloe sat across from me, scrolling through something on her phone. She looked up just long enough to flick her eyes at me and said, "Yeah, Ollie, you're cool with that." I looked at Dad. He was slicing potatoes, slow and methodic. He didn't look up. Mom didn't wait for an answer. She went back to arranging carrots on her plate. The conversation was already closed, the decision made somewhere I hadn't been invited. "Sure, Mom," I said. My voice sounded even, but I felt it catch in my throat. Chloe set her phone on the table. She started talking about her classes, how her roommate had moved out without notice, how her lease was up next week. She talked over me, not to me, listing her problems for Mom to solve. I watched her pick at her food, her nails painted the color of blood oranges. I noticed her new phone case, something expensive with a gold trim. I gripped my fork. The metal felt cold in my hand. My fingers hurt from holding it too tight, but I kept them steady. Dad finally spoke. He asked if anyone wanted more roast. No one answered. He got up, carrying the platter to the counter, scraping the knife against the bone. Chloe kept talking. She said she didn't have time to look at new places. She said, "It's just easier if I move into Ollie's old one." She didn't ask. She never asked. Mom said, "It's settled then. Chloe, we'll start packing your things on Saturday. Ollie, you keep the place tidy, right?" I nodded. My jaw felt tight. I wanted to say, "It's not my old apartment. I still live there." They talked about logistics, what furniture to take, how to move boxes, if Chloe wanted to paint the bedroom. Dad stood at the sink, washing dishes by hand, even though there was a dishwasher. He kept his back to us. No one asked if I needed the apartment. No one asked if I was willing to move out, or where I would go. I wondered if they even remembered I still paid rent there, or if they assumed I would just disappear on cue, leave my keys behind like a hotel guest. I chewed my food, barely tasting it. The room felt smaller than usual. Chloe asked Mom if she could get the locks changed. Mom said, "Of course, honey, we'll make sure you feel safe." I kept my eyes on my plate. I thought about the mug in the kitchen at my apartment, the one with a chip on the handle. I wondered if Chloe would throw it out. I wondered if she'd notice the notes I left for myself on the fridge, or erase them without reading. After dinner, Chloe went out with her friends. Mom cleared the table, scraping my uneaten food into the trash. Dad stayed at the sink. I stood in the hallway, holding my coat, staring at the front door. Mom brushed past me. "Don't forget your keys," she said. "Chloe might need them soon." I left without saying goodbye. The air outside felt damp. I walked to my car and sat there with the engine off, my hands in my lap. My keys felt heavy in my pocket. The kitchen lights felt too bright. I stood by the fridge, hand on the handle, pretending to look for something. Mom was at the counter, scraping the last of the casserole into a container. She moved slow, scraping metal on glass, not looking at me. I asked, "Did you mean Chloe's just staying for a few nights?" She didn't answer right away. She closed the lid, pressed it down, then rinsed the spoon. Her shoulders lifted a little, then dropped. She said, "She needs stability. You have your new place now. It's only fair." I kept my voice low. "I still have things there. My clothes, my books." She set the spoon in the sink. It clattered. She wiped her hands on a towel, still not facing me. "You're hardly there," she said. "You're grown. It's time. Chloe doesn't have anywhere else." The clock on the wall ticked. I heard footsteps in the hallway. I tried again. I said I wasn't told. I would have cleared out my things if I knew. She shrugged. "You can get them when you want. I'm not throwing anything out. Chloe just needs a place to land, that's all." Chloe's voice came from the door. She had her phone in her hand, screen lighting up her face. "I'll only take the good stuff, promise." She grinned, not looking at me, thumbs still moving. Her nails were painted red. She leaned against the doorframe like she owned it. I said nothing. I slid the fridge door open, stared at the milk, then closed it again. It felt stupid, standing there empty-handed. I could hear my heart, slow and dull. Mom glanced at Chloe, then back at me, like she was waiting for me to say something else. Chloe pushed off the doorframe. She said, "Where do you keep the wine? Is it still in the hall closet?" She didn't wait for an answer, just drifted out, phone in one hand, calling over her shoulder, "I'll find it." Mom watched her leave. She sighed, rubbing her forehead. She said she's had a rough time. Try to be understanding. I leaned on the counter. I asked, "So she's just moving in? You just decided?" Mom's mouth went tight. "I didn't decide anything," she said. "She's family. She needs help. You have your apartment. I don't see the problem." I stared at the counter. There was a ring from someone's mug, half wiped. I traced it with my finger, feeling the sticky edge. I said, "I pay half the bills here. I lived here." She shook her head. You wanted your own space. You left. It's not forever. Why are you making this difficult? I didn't answer. I looked up at her. She looked tired. Her jaw was set. The silence grew. Chloe's laugh echoed from the hallway. She was on the phone with someone now, voice rising, door closing behind her. I could see the edge of her suitcase by the stairs, half-zipped. A purple scarf hung out. Mom turned to the sink. She ran the water, loud, and started scrubbing the casserole dish. I watched her knuckles whiten. I went to the hallway and looked at the shoes by the door. Chloe's were already mixed with mine. She had 3 pairs, all lined up. Mine were pushed to the side. I stood there, listening to the water run, Chloe's voice muffled behind the closed door, and Mom's silence behind me. I didn't take my coat off. I just stood until the water stopped. Then I went to the stairs. My old bedroom door was open. Chloe's purse was on my desk. My books were stacked in the corner, some moved, a few on the floor. I heard Mom's voice, low, talking to herself in the kitchen. I heard the scrape of the dish, the thud as she set it down. Chloe's laugh again, sharp, then gone. I stood by my room, not going in. My phone buzzed once in my pocket. I didn't look at it. I just stared at the suitcase, the scarf, my things shifted, and the quiet that settled after. Monday morning, my phone vibrates while I'm pouring coffee. I glance at the screen email from building management. The subject line is authorization to transfer lease. I don't know what that means. My hand is wet from the mug. I wipe it on my jeans and sit down. The email has a PDF attached. I open it. My name is typed at the bottom, signature line, Olivia Bennett. There's a digital signature, timestamped 2:13 a.m. Last night, I was out at dinner with my friend Kelly until close to midnight. I never signed anything. The document says I'm authorizing the transfer of my apartment lease to Chloe Martin. Chloe is my cousin. She's been living with me for a few months. The management company writes, "Please confirm receipt and let us know if you have any questions." I stare at the screen. I scroll back up. The message is forwarded from the property manager with a single line at the top. Per your request. I check the PDF again. Every box is filled in, even the emergency contact, which is my mother's number. The signature is mine, copied from a DocuSign I remember using last winter. I touch my face. My mouth tastes like metal. The front door clicks. I hear keys. Chloe walks in wearing my old hoodie. She's swinging my spare key on one finger. She sees me at the table, then glances at my laptop. "You're up early," she says. She sounds casual. I nod. I keep the PDF open on the screen and turn the laptop slightly toward her. I ask if she knows anything about a lease transfer. She shrugs. "What's that?" I say it's weird, because management emailed me this. I point at the lease document. She looks at it but doesn't move closer. She says, "Oh, maybe they just sent it to everyone. I don't know." I say nothing. I watch her eyes. She looks at the kitchen counter, then back at the PDF. She puts the spare key down on the table. Her hand shakes a little, but she tucks it into her sleeve. I say this was signed at 2:13 a.m. last night. I ask her where she was. She says she was here, sleeping. She didn't hear me come in. She says maybe the building made a mistake. I stand up. My legs feel heavy. I ask her again, "Did you do this?" She laughs. Not a real laugh. She says, "Why would I? I'm just crashing here until I find my own place." I let the silence hang. She looks down and starts scrolling on her phone. I watch her thumb move across the screen. I ask if she's sure she hasn't used my laptop for anything. She says no. She says, maybe you sleepwalked. I don't answer. I pick up my phone and take a picture of the screen. I forward the email to myself, then to my mother. Chloe moves to the fridge. She pulls out orange juice, pours a glass. She says, "You're making me nervous." I tell her I'm going to call management. Her face tenses, but she forces a smile and says, "Go ahead." She leaves her glass on the counter and disappears into the bathroom. I hear the lock click. I sit back down, staring at the signature on the screen. My hand is shaking, but I keep still. There is a ringing in my ears. I open my calendar and scroll back. Last night, dinner with Kelly. I text Kelly, "Did I leave you around midnight?" She replies fast, "Yeah, why?" I close my eyes. There's no mistake. Someone used my name to sign this. I hear the shower start. I look at the closed bathroom door and the spare key on the table. I don't touch it. I stare at my name on the lease, and I know. The hallway smelled like old paint and cardboard. I pushed open the door to my old apartment and heard voices and music. Chloe's playlist pop, too loud, echoing off the walls. I stepped in and saw her on the living room floor, sitting cross-legged with a slice of pizza. Two of her friends stood over an open box, laughing. She looked up. "You're late," she said. "We already started moving in." Her tone was flat, like she'd been expecting me to walk in on the mess. My framed degree was on the floor near the shoe rack. Someone had leaned it against the wall, glass side down. My books, I counted at least 12, were stacked in the hallway by the bathroom door, spines facing out. There was an open box labeled "Kitchen" in marker. Inside, I saw some of my plates, the set I bought last year after my promotion. I kept my bag on my shoulder and walked past them. Chloe's friends watched me for a second, then went back to their conversation. One of them was holding my old sweater, the blue one I wore when I moved in. "How did you get the key?" I asked. I tried to keep my voice level. Chloe shrugged. "Mom gave it to me. She said you wouldn't care." I didn't say anything. I set my bag down near the bedroom door and started gathering papers from the coffee table. Tax forms, a folder with my work contract, some loose receipts. My laptop was under a pile of magazines. I slid it out, checked for scratches. Chloe's friends turned the music up. One of them asked if they should order more pizza. Chloe said, "We can eat what's left in the fridge. It's probably all hers anyway." I carried the stack of papers to my old desk. There was a half-empty cup of soda next to my lamp. The drawers were open. Inside, things looked shuffled, my passport in a new envelope, my childhood photos pushed to one side. I took out what was mine and put it all in my backpack. "Do you want help with the boxes?" One of Chloe's friends called out. She grinned at me, sarcastic, like she was doing me a favor. "No," I said. "I'll get my stuff." Chloe rolled her eyes. "We're not touching your precious books," she said. "You can come back for those when we're done." I picked up the degree and looked at the frame, a small chip along the corner, nothing major. I balanced it under my arm and walked back to the kitchen. There were 2 mugs in the sink, both mine. I rinsed them and put them in my tote bag. The apartment felt smaller already. I could hear Chloe's voice in the hallway, telling her friend to check out the bedroom, that she wanted the bigger closet. I heard the closet doors slide open, hangers clattering. I stood by the window and looked outside for a minute. Cars were moving down the street, headlights blinking in the dusk. I could see my old neighbor walking her dog, same time as always. After a few minutes, I zipped my bag shut and slung it over my shoulder. Chloe was blocking the hall, texting. She didn't move. "I need to get through," I said. She looked up. "You got everything." "Most of it," I said. "I'll come back for the rest." "Fine," she said and stepped aside. You should have said you were coming earlier. We already made plans. I walked past her, careful not to bump her elbow. At the door, I turned and looked at the living room one last time. My books in a crooked pile, my degree under my arm, Chloe sitting where I used to sit every night. I closed the door behind me. There was a click as it shut, louder than I expected. I called the front desk that morning because I wanted to know if they'd noticed anything strange. A new person coming and going, maybe someone using my key fob. I tried to keep my voice even, just said, "Hi, this is MS. Bennett from 18B. I need to check something about my lease and the guests you're letting in." The woman on the other end paused, then her tone switched to something careful. "Oh, yes, MS. Bennett, your mother spoke to us last week. She said your sister would be moving in, and we could let her in any time. We have her ID on file now, so she's approved in the system." I waited a second before answering. My mouth felt dry. My mother had called them. My sister had her ID in the building's system. I asked, "Could you send me a copy of the signed lease you have on file, just for my records?" The woman was polite. "Of course, I'll email it right away." "Is there anything else?" I said no. I hung up and checked my email. The attachment arrived a minute later. I double-checked the sender, opened the PDF, and scrolled through it. It looked like the lease I'd signed 2 years ago, except now there was an addendum on the last page and a digital signature. My name, but not written by me, with a timestamp from last week. I right-clicked and checked the document properties. There it was, author Chloe Bennett. My sister's name. My heart thudded in my chest. I didn't sign this. I hadn't even seen this addendum. I sat back in my chair and stared at the screen. Chloe must have used my old login. I remembered that my mother kept her computer in the kitchen, never logged out. I'd used it to scan documents the last time I visited. I hadn't thought about logging out. Now Chloe had my login, my digital signature, and access to everything I'd left behind. My hands started shaking. I printed out the lease and watched the pages come out, one by one. The signature looked almost real, just a line of text, not even a scribble. But the name was mine. The date was last Thursday. The author property was Chloe S. I picked up the phone again, but I didn't dial. I sat with the papers in my lap, feeling like I was outside my own life, watching someone else's mistakes unfold. I thought about how easy it was for them. A phone call to the front desk, a copy of my ID from the building's files, a fake signature on a digital form. I tried to steady my breathing. My mother and Chloe hadn't told me anything. They hadn't asked if I was okay with it. They hadn't even warned me. Chloe must have thought I wouldn't notice, or maybe she didn't care if I did. My mother had always taken Chloe's side, always said she deserved a fresh start. I stared at the email, then the printed lease, then the blank wall above my desk. I felt myself drifting a little, not quite angry, not quite sad. Just tired. I folded the lease and put it in a drawer. I'd need it later. I knew that much. For now, I just sat there. The building had let my sister in because my mother said it was okay. My mother had said it was okay because Chloe forged my name and used my login. The chain of small, casual betrayals ended with me, sitting in my apartment, holding a piece of paper that said I'd agreed to all of it. I thought about calling my mother, or even Chloe. I knew neither of them would tell me the truth. It was easier for them to pretend I'd agreed, to keep moving forward as if nothing was wrong. So I sat, listening to the low hum of traffic outside, the printer cooling down, the email still open on my screen. My hands finally stopped shaking, but the feeling stayed. This was how it happened. Quiet, simple, just a few clicks and a phone call. No one even had to look me in the eye. I parked a little crooked in my parents' driveway because Chloe's car was still there, even though she was supposed to be staying at her boyfriend's. The porch light was on. It made the front window look like a yellow eye. Inside, the TV was loud. My dad was on the couch, feet up, plate balanced on his knee. He didn't look over when the door clicked behind me. I stood in the hall for a second. I could hear my mom in the kitchen, banging pans. There was a FaceTime call going on in the dining room, Chloe's voice, half laughing, coming from a laptop on the table. "Dad," I said, "did you know Chloe forged my signature?" He didn't pause the TV. He didn't take his eyes off the news anchors. "Your sister's been under a lot of pressure lately," he said. His voice was flat, like he was reading a script. That wasn't what I asked. Mom came out of the kitchen holding a mug. She looked at me, not smiling. "Ollie," she said, "it's all family." She needed help. Chloe's been struggling. You know that. I stood there, holding my bag, and looked at her. "That's fraud," I said. She signed my name on a lease. I didn't agree to anything. Mom set her mug down a little too hard. The spoon rattled. "If we can't help each other, what's the point?" she said, not looking at me. She wiped the counter with the edge of her sleeve. "It's your sister." From the dining room, Chloe's voice cut through, sharp and echoing from the speakers. "Ollie, stop being dramatic. It's not a big deal, God, you're always like this." She was talking to her boyfriend, but she'd heard every word. I didn't answer. I could see her face on the laptop screen, frozen mid-eye roll. Her boyfriend was half out of frame, grinning at something on his phone. Chloe started talking fast, telling him how I always made things about myself, how I loved to play victim. I watched her through the doorway, then turned and went upstairs. My old room was mostly empty. The bed was stripped. There was a stack of boxes in the corner, stuff Mom kept meaning to give to charity. I sat on the floor and opened my laptop. I didn't cry and I didn't yell. I typed, "Tenant rights sibling forged lease," into the search bar. I read 3 articles about digital signatures and what counts as legal consent. I bookmarked a site with a long FAQ about housing fraud. It didn't make me feel better. Downstairs, the TV got louder. Dad laughed at something, not at me, not at Chloe. Mom ran water in the sink. I heard the front door open and close, probably Chloe leaving for her boyfriend, still on FaceTime, still complaining about me. I kept reading. Most sites said I'd have to prove I never agreed. They said to get copies of everything. I made a list in my notes, steps to take, numbers to call. I felt my jaw clench, but I didn't move. At some point, Mom came to the door. She didn't come in. She said, "I know you're upset, but Chloe's your sister. We all have to live with each other." I didn't answer, and she didn't wait for one. I copied links. I sent myself an email with the subject line, "For later." I looked at the walls, old posters peeling at the corners. I listened to their voices below, talking about dinner, the weather, anything except what Chloe had done. I stayed upstairs until the house was quiet, then I left without saying goodnight. The drive home felt automatic. I locked my apartment door behind me and sat on my bed, staring at my phone, waiting for some kind of apology that never came. The call came in while I was putting groceries away. The number on the screen was unfamiliar, but local. I answered anyway. The voice was calm and professional, almost bored, asking if this was Samantha Gray. I said yes, and she told me she was from First City Bank's fraud department. She read off a security phrase and asked me to confirm the last 4 digits of my social. I gave them, still thinking this was probably a scam call. Then she said, "We noticed a large withdrawal request from your joint account with Chloe. Can you confirm this is you?" I leaned against the fridge. I asked her to repeat it. She said the amount, $4,200, was pending as a transfer. The label said security deposit. Did I authorize this? No, I said. I haven't touched that account in months. She asked if I wanted to freeze the account. I told her yes, immediately. She said she would do that now, and I'd get an email confirmation. I thanked her, hung up, and set my phone down on the counter. I stared at the wall for a few seconds, then went to get my laptop from the bedroom. Logging in took longer than usual because my hands were shaking. The joint checking account was still there, same as always. We'd kept it open for rent and bills during the last year of our relationship, and I'd left a few thousand in there when I moved out, enough to cover anything that got missed. We'd both agreed to close it, but then she'd said she needed it for one more month, something about an old gym membership. She promised not to use it after that. I'd changed the password. I thought it was done. The transaction was right there at the top of the activity list. The recipient was a property management company. The timing made sense. She'd been talking about moving into a new place, somewhere more adult. I clicked through the details, took screenshots of everything. She hadn't even tried to hide it. The transfer request was made from her usual device, the same one that used to log in on our shared laptop. I sat back in the chair and tried to work through the facts. She'd always been good at getting what she wanted. When we were together, it was little things, convincing me to order takeout instead of cooking, borrowing my car, using my Netflix. After the breakup, she'd asked to keep the account open for just a bit longer. Dee said she would never take anything without asking. I'd believed her. It was just a bank account, I thought. I could trust her with that. I called the bank's main number and got routed to another person. I explained the situation, gave all the information again. The man on the line said the account was now frozen and the transfer wouldn't go through. He asked if I wanted to file a fraud report. I said I didn't know yet. He said I could always call back. I thanked him. When I hung up, the apartment was quiet. I listened for sounds from the hallway, voices from the neighbors. Nothing. I scrolled through my phone, looking for any recent messages from Chloe. There was nothing about the transfer, or the new apartment, or the money. The last text from her was a meme about bad roommates, sent 2 weeks ago. I opened our old email thread and typed out a message. I've frozen the account. Let me know if you want to talk. I didn't send it. I just let the message sit there. I spent the rest of the afternoon looking through old photos, receipts, anything that seemed related. I found the email where she promised to stop using the account. I found the text where she'd thanked me for trusting her. Everything lined up. There was no mistake. I wondered how far she would have gone if the bank hadn't called. If she would have told me about the transfer, or just waited for me to notice the missing money. I thought about what else she still had access to: accounts, passwords, old subscriptions. I started a list. That night, I didn't sleep much. I kept thinking about her voice, casual and sweet, promising she'd never cross the line. I knew now she already had, and maybe she'd been planning it for weeks. The betrayal wasn't loud. It was quiet, careful, practiced. I could feel it in the silence. I put my phone face down on the kitchen counter and stared at the folder I'd been filling for the last 2 hours. My back hurt from leaning over the table, sorting paper into neat stacks. The hum of the refrigerator was the only sound. I made a checklist on my notepad: lease, emails, bank statements, photos. I opened the laptop and went through Chloe's messages again, looking for anything that mentioned the apartment or the joint account. Most of it was casual, but there were 2 emails where she asked for my bank details and a text where she told me she'd taken care of the rent. Don't worry. I took screenshots of everything and saved them in a new folder labeled evidence. At midnight, I walked through the apartment with my phone camera. I took slow photos of every room. The empty shelf in the living room, the missing kettle, the half-filled dresser in the second bedroom. Her things gone. I opened every drawer and took photos of what was left. I took a video of the closet, showing the empty hangers where her coats used to be. I opened the kitchen cabinets and filmed the missing blender, the empty spot where the wine glasses sat. I didn't speak. The only noise was my footsteps on the floor. I pulled up the lease on my computer. My name, Chloe's forged signature, the landlord's initials. I found the scanned copy she'd sent me when she said she'd renewed it. I compared it to the old lease. Her handwriting was wrong on the new signature. The date was off by a month. I saved both versions. I opened my bank app. I scrolled back to the transfer. $2, $300 to the landlord, 2 days after Chloe told me she'd paid her half. I pulled my last 6 statements and highlighted every rent payment. At 2:00 a.m., I sat on the floor with my laptop. I typed out an email to Simon, the lawyer I'd met at university. I kept it short. Hi, Simon. Sorry for the late message. I need some advice about a forged lease, an unauthorized bank transfer, involving my former roommate. I attached the files, lease, emails, bank statements, and photos. I ended with, please let me know if you have time for a call this week. I went back to my checklist and added meeting with management. I opened the building's tenant portal and requested a meeting for Thursday. I wrote a short message. I have concerns about the current lease and missing property. Please let me know when you're available. I attached the lease and a list of missing items. I made one more folder on my desktop and labeled it Chloe Evidence. I moved everything there, then backed it up on a USB drive. I put the drive in a drawer with my passport and birth certificate. I stared at my phone. No new messages from Chloe. No reply from Simon. I scrolled through our last conversation and stopped when I saw her final text. I moved out. Please don't contact me. I sat in the dark for a long time. I thought about the day Chloe moved in, her suitcase at the door, her smile, her promise that we'll make this place ours. I remembered her laugh in the kitchen, the nights we watched movies, the way she borrowed my clothes without asking. I looked at the clock. 4 hours until sunrise. I checked the front door. It was locked. I turned off the lights, one by one, and went to bed. I didn't sleep much. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her empty side of the closet. I kept hearing the echo of her voice, but there was only silence. MS. Lee's office always smelled faintly like printer ink and coffee creamer. I sat on the little plastic chair across from her desk, a stack of papers in my lap, my phone beside me. The room was quiet, except for the whir of her desktop fan. I slid each document over, one by one. The lease transfer with my name in the wrong handwriting. The bank statement showing the withdrawal I hadn't authorized, dated the day Chloe said she'd handle the rent. I handed her my phone, scrolled to the photo album, and pointed at the pictures. My boxes in the hallway, my winter coat balled up on the doormat, the clear shot of the door with a new lock. MS. Lee adjusted her glasses and read each page. She didn't say anything at first. She tapped her pen against the lease, then looked at the file metadata on my phone. You're saying you didn't sign this? She asked. Her voice was flat, but her eyebrows went up. I shook my head. I kept my hands in my lap. That's not my signature. I can show you what it's supposed to look like. She nodded, then clicked her mouse, opened the digital lease transfer request. This is serious, MS. Bennett. If you didn't authorize this, it's not just a violation. It could be fraud. I'll need to call our legal department, but for now, we'll freeze any changes. She looked at me for a second, measuring something. I could hear muffled voices from the hallway. MS. Lee picked up her office phone and dialed. Security, this is Lee and management. I have a situation. Tenant S been locked out after an unauthorized lease transfer. Yes, please send someone to change the locks immediately. She hung up, then turned back to me. You'll have new keys by the end of the day. No one else will have access except you. I'll email you when it's done. I nodded. My heart was thudding, but my face didn't move. I kept my voice low. Thank you. She gathered the papers into a folder. Do you want to file a police report? She asked. I hesitated, looking out the window. Cars in the parking lot glinted in the late afternoon sun. Not yet. I just want her out. I want it fixed. MS. Lee nodded again, slower this time. We'll notify her immediately. She'll have until the end of the week to collect her things. After that, she's trespassing. She glanced at the clock, then back at me. You did the right thing bringing this in. We'll handle it from here. I left the office with a copy of the folder and my phone back in my pocket. The hallway was empty, except for the janitor's cart. I walked past the leasing posters, the fake ficus tree, and out into the lot. My fingers were cold, even though it was warm outside. I sat in my car and stared at the dashboard for a minute. I typed out a message to Chloe. You need to move out by Friday. The locks are being changed today. It took less than a minute for her reply to come through. First, the typing dots. Then a string of angry emojis, red faces, exclamation points, the broken heart. No words. Just that. I watched the screen for a while, but she didn't say anything else. I didn't answer. I closed the message and scrolled up, looking at our old texts. Plans for drinks, reminders about groceries, a photo of the two of us at the pool last summer. All of it felt like it belonged to someone else now. I leaned back in the seat and closed my eyes. My phone buzzed again, but I didn't look. I waited until the shaking in my hands stopped, then started the engine, feeling the air from the vents on my face. I drove home slowly, half watching the road, thinking about the new keys that would be waiting for me. Chloe let herself in without knocking. The door crashed against the wall. She came straight at me, hair wild, face red, yelling loud enough for the neighbors to hear. You ruined everything. Mom said it was fine. She threw her bag onto the hall table, scattering unopened mail. I didn't move from the kitchen. I kept my voice even. You forged my signature and stole from me. You have 3 days to make it right, or I go to the police. She stopped at the counter, chest heaving. I could see her hands shaking. She wouldn't meet my eyes. She started pacing. Mom said you'd understand. It wasn't a big deal. I just needed help. Why are you being so dramatic? She kept walking back and forth, grabbing at her hair. I heard the elevator ding. Mom's voice came from the hall, small and nervous. Chloe, stop it. She stepped inside, looking tired, holding her purse like a shield. Let's talk this through. Let's keep this quiet. Nobody needs to know. I slid the manila folder across the counter. Bank statements, screenshots, the copy of the credit card application with the fake signature. I pressed my finger on the line. You did this, Chloe. I know every transaction. I know the exact day you started. Mom stared at the folder, then at me. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. She looked from me to Chloe, then back to the folder. Her face went pale. For a second, she just stood there, silent. Chloe tried again. It wasn't stealing. You have money. You never help me. You're just trying to punish me because you hate how close I am with Mom. That's not what this is about, I said. You lied to me. You took thousands from my account. You forged my name. It's a crime. Dad's voice came from the doorway. He must have followed Mom up. Chloe, you went too far. He didn't shout. He just said it like a fact. Chloe turned on him. So you're taking her side now. Of course you are. You always do. She's your favorite, right? Her words came out sharp and fast. But Dad didn't answer her. He kept his eyes on the folder. Mom finally sat down at the table. Her hands clutched her bag so tightly, her knuckles turned white. She looked smaller than usual, like she'd folded in on herself. She didn't say anything. Chloe's voice got higher. You're not going to call the police. You wouldn't ruin your own family. She looked at me, searching for any sign I'd back down. I didn't respond. I waited. She tried again, but her words broke. You wouldn't do that. You're not like that. You're not. I kept my tone flat. You have 3 days. Pay it back, or I file the report. The room went quiet. Mom looked at the folder. Dad stood in the doorway, silent, like he was waiting for someone else to speak. Nobody did. Chloe's face changed. The anger was gone, replaced by something smaller. She stared at the countertop, not at me. Mom finally spoke, voice thin. Let's not drag this out. Tell us what you want, exactly. I want my money back. I want it in writing. I want no more contact after this is over. Chloe's hand shook as she picked up her bag. She didn't say goodbye. She just left, slamming the door behind her so hard the frame rattled. Dad looked at Mom. We need to fix this. He sounded tired. Mom didn't answer. She just kept looking at the folder, like she couldn't believe it was real. Chloe went quiet for a week after moving out. I didn't hear a word from her. No texts, no calls, nothing. I saw her name pop up on my phone once, but it was just a silent story notification. Then, late one Friday, her Instagram post appeared. The photo was an old childhood picture of us in the backyard. The caption said, "Homeless thanks to my own sister." Within an hour, her friends filled the comments. Most were confused. A few posted crying emojis. A couple of them messaged me directly, asking if I'd kicked Chloe out. I ignored them. Someone tagged our mom. Another friend from college replied, "Did something happen with your apartment?" Chloe answered, "She tricked me and now I have nowhere to go." By noon the next day, the story had spread. My cousin sent me a screenshot. Chloe's roommate from her old apartment replied to the post with a link. It was a screenshot of a public court record, my police report about the forged lease, and the eviction notice. The file was public. My name, Chloe's name, the date, the summary. It was all there. The caption underneath, "Looks like there's more to this story." People started asking questions. Who forged what? Why did the police get involved? Chloe stopped replying. One of her close friends put it together, writing in the comments, "Wait, did you fake a lease? Is that why you got kicked out?" That afternoon, my phone buzzed nonstop. The family WhatsApp group had over 100 messages. My aunt from Toronto wrote, "What is this about the police?" My uncle in Boston sent a link to the court record and said, "Chloe, we need to talk." My mother tried to calm everyone down. She posted, "Please don't speculate, we're sorting it out as a family." My father, who almost never texts, finally wrote, "Chloe, did you forge a lease in your sister's name?" Chloe replied with a string of crying face emojis and said, "I just wanted to help out. It wasn't like that." My dad wrote again, "This is serious. You committed a crime. Until you grow up and take responsibility, you are out of my will." There was a long pause after that. Nobody answered, not even my mother. My grandmother posted a single line in all caps. "How could this happen?" Chloe left the group, chat 5 minutes later. I sat in the kitchen, phone on the counter, watching the messages pile up. For years, Chloe had always been the golden child. She was the one who got the extra gifts, the first pick of vacations, the one my parents bragged about to their friends. Now her friends were sending her messages, but not the supportive kind. Two of them texted me to apologize. One wrote, "I had no idea she'd do something like that." Another said, "I'm sorry for accusing you. I didn't know the full story." My mother called that night. She sounded tired. She said, "Your sister made a mistake, but did you have to make it public? I told her I didn't post anything. I just filed a police report because I had to." She was quiet for a while, then said, "Maybe it's for the best if Chloe stays with your aunt for now." Chloe's reputation changed overnight. Friends stopped tagging her in photos. Her old roommate posted a story about fake people and real consequences. My cousin texted me that nobody in the family chat wanted to talk about it anymore. My father sent me a message the next morning. "I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself. Let's have dinner soon." For the first time in months, my phone stayed silent. Chloe didn't message again. I didn't see her name in my notifications. No one called to tell me I was being unfair. The story played out in public, and I never had to say a word. I walked barefoot across the living room, the floor cold and clean underfoot. Sunlight moved across the glass coffee table, spilling over the edge and onto the couch. I left the curtains open now, even in the mornings. I made coffee in silence, no music, no news. The city below was loud, but up here it was quiet. I didn't rush. The mug felt heavy in my hand as I carried it to the balcony. I watched the traffic snake by and let the steam rise up around my face. The movers had finished last week. My old apartment was empty, except for the echo of my footsteps. It had taken less than an hour to walk through it and make sure nothing was left. The walls were bare, a few marks where pictures used to hang. I changed the locks myself, the super handing me the tools and waiting in the hall. When I slid the new key into the knob, it turned without resistance. I put the old keys in a small envelope, wrote my name on the outside, and gave them to the woman at the front desk. She glanced at me, then away, then back. "Good luck," she said, not smiling. I nodded, not sure what to say. The elevator was slow. I watched my reflection in the brushed metal doors. I looked tired, but not in a bad way. More like I'd stopped bracing for something. Back in the penthouse, the boxes were gone. I'd put the last of my clothes away. There was nothing left to unpack. I threw out old shoes, old notebooks, things I'd carried from place to place for years. I made the bed every morning. I started opening the windows for the first hour after I woke up, even if it was cold. Chloe hadn't called or texted since the police showed up. The report was short, factual, nothing dramatic, just enough to make her back off. I saw her name pop up on my phone once, but I let it go to voicemail. She didn't leave a message. I checked her social media, one last time out of habit. Her profile picture was new. She looked smaller, somehow. My parents kept their distance. Emails instead of calls. Short updates, small talk, nothing personal. My mother asked if I needed anything. My father forwarded me an article about interest rates. I replied when I felt like it. No one mentioned Chloe. No one asked about the locks or the move. I started sleeping through the night. No waking up at 3 with my heart pounding. No listening for footsteps in the hallway. I bought new sheets, pale blue, and a heavy comforter. The mattress was firmer than my old one. Sometimes I woke up and didn't remember where I was for a second. Then I saw the city lights through the window and remembered. I cooked simple meals. I sat at the table and ate without scrolling through my phone. Sometimes I watched the rain hit the glass. There was a plant on the counter now, something green and spiky. I watered it every Sunday. I saw Chloe once, by accident, in the lobby of a building across town. She didn't see me. She was with someone else, talking fast, hands moving. I kept walking. She never looked up. The days got longer. The sun stayed up later. The silence wasn't heavy anymore. It felt like something new was settling in, slow and steady, not dramatic. Just quieter. I stopped thinking about what anyone else was doing. I went to bed when I was tired and woke up when I was rested. The city kept moving outside my windows, but I didn't feel pulled by it. I started to believe it might stay this way. My old apartment is back on the rental market. The building manager sent me a standard email about key returns, as if nothing unusual happened. There's no sign of Chloe or her friends. Someone else will move in soon. I don't look at the listing photos for long. My name's off the lease, utilities, everything. The joint bank accounts are gone too. I checked the balances one last time, closed the tabs, and felt the kind of quiet you get after a storm passes. My salary goes straight to my new account. No one else can touch it. That's done. Chloe is staying with a friend from work. I know because she texted once about picking up some clothes. She kept it short, just the address and a time. I left her things in bags on the porch, locked the door, and went back inside. She didn't ring the bell. I watched through the blinds until her car pulled away. Mom still calls, but she avoids my name if Chloe comes up. I hear her voice change. When there's tension, she wants to skip over. We talk about the weather, her garden, anything safe. Dad wrote me an email instead of calling. It was only a few lines. He said he was proud I stood my ground, that he didn't say it enough. He signed it Dad, which he hasn't done since I was a kid. Family dinners are quieter now. Nobody mentions the apartment or the money. If Chloe's brought up, the room goes still. I don't fill the silence. I set the rules, and no one pushes back. It's not warm, but it's honest. I have my own place and my own accounts. For the first time, I don't owe anyone an explanation. 3 months went by without any real notice. The city shifted from early spring to humid summer, and I moved through it like someone who's lived here all her life, but never quite belonged. My name is the only one on the mortgage now. I keep the paperwork in a locked drawer in my new study, even though I never look at it. The realtor sent me a congratulatory card after it closed. I threw it away. I planned a small housewarming, not the big, performative sort Chloe would have organized, just a few coworkers and 2 friends from college. I bought a new set of plates, put out wine and crackers, and let people comment on how peaceful the place felt. They didn't ask what happened. I didn't offer. There was a point, early in the evening, when I realized no one had mentioned Chloe's name or asked about her. It felt like closing a window after a storm. Around 9, my phone buzzed. It was a single text from Chloe. Just one word, sorry, no punctuation. I stared at it for a second. The bubble sat there, gray and quiet. I didn't open it. I put my phone face down and went back to the kitchen to refill a bowl of nuts. Later, after everyone left, I stood by the window. The city lights were dull and far away, like they belonged to someone else. A neighbor's TV flickered blue in the apartment across. I washed the last glass, dried my hands, and sat down in the silence. The house felt different, emptier, but not in a bad way. I went to bed early that night and slept through until morning. Looking back, I still wonder if there was a better way. Reporting my own sister felt like crossing a line that can't be uncrossed, even after everything she did. I keep asking myself if family loyalty is supposed to mean covering up their worst mistakes, or if some things just can't stay hidden, no matter who's involved. If you were in my place, would you have gone to the authorities or tried to solve it quietly? I'm not sure if I'll ever get a clear answer, but reading what other people would do sometimes helps. Have you ever had to choose between doing what's right and protecting someone close to you? Did you regret it, or did it turn out for the best? These are the kinds of stories I want to hear, real decisions, not perfect ones. If you've ever been in a situation where loyalty and justice clashed, I hope you'll share what happened, even if it's messy. If you think more people should hear about stories like this, feel free to subscribe or share it with someone who's been through something similar. I'm still trying to figure out what the right thing is. What would you do if your own family crossed that line?